Hi, I'm Chris Giamo, and at TD Bank, we believe all citizens need to be informed about the important financial issues that affect their daily lives. That's why we're proud to support programming produced by the Caucus Educational Corporation.
Funding for this edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been provided by the Healthcare Foundation of New Jersey, founded by the Jewish community, RWJ Barnabas Health, TD Bank, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, the Turrell Fund, supporting Right from the Start NJ, the Russell Berry Foundation, and by Johnson & Johnson. Promotional support provided by NJ Biz, All Business, All New Jersey, and by the New Jersey Business and Industry Association.
This is One-on-One. I'm an equal American just like you are.
The jobs of tomorrow are not the jobs of yesterday.
Look at this. You got this?
There it is, man. Look at it.
Life without dance is boring.
I don't care how good you are or how good you think you are, there is always something to learn.
Do you enjoy talking politics?
No.
People call me because they feel nobody's paying attention.
Our culture, I don't think, has ever been tested the way it's being tested right now.
Such a good question. High five.
Welcome to One-on-One. I'm Steve Adubato. This is our guest. She is Dr. Dafna Lemish, who is a distinguished professor at the School of Communication, Information at Rutgers University, which I know very well.
Yes, you do. You're a graduate of our program. We're very, very proud of that.
I will disclose that. I barely got out. Let's do this. Take a look at this headline from our friends at the Star-Ledger. But this was reported in a lot of newspapers. What's on TV for kids? Not much diversity, and that is exactly what we're here to talk about. Doctor, you and your colleagues did a study.
Yep.
Children's television in the U.S. and in Canada, and you have found some alarming things, particularly around the lack of diversity. Make the case.
Well, first of all, just to clarify, it's not just U.S. and Canada. It was an international study. U.S. and Canada was just part of it. So the issue we're talking about is global, international. Well, what we found was that still the television screens that our children are exposed to are dominated by white males from middle class. So enabled, that's another really important point to emphasize, that you don't see any children with any kind of disability or any kind of health issues. So what we find is that you have a minority of females, which is still amazing. You know, 10 years ago...
A minority of females in this day and
age? Yes, which is amazing because we did a similar study 10 years ago, and we were sure that now, 10 years later, we'll find, you know, equality with everything that we've been discussing about gender equality in the last 10 years.
Sure. So
it moved up from females being 32% of all the characters on children's television to 38%. So we have a little progress, but if we wait for this pace of progress, it's going to take another 25 years to get to 50%.
And how are girls portrayed versus boys in a lot of this programming, in terms of their power, their ability to get things done?
So that's a really important question because it's not only the number, it's also how they're portrayed. So we know the females, for example, tend to be more followers rather than leaders. They tend to be in groups rather than be loners. The boys are more loners. They're kind of the top of the pyramid. Or, you know, they compete.
Are boys seen more as leaders?
Boys are more
thinkers?
Leaders. Three times as leaders. Also, boys solve problems using STEM. They're using technology, they're using science, they're using math, they're using engineering.
And girls?
Magic.
Magic?
Magic, you know. Remember the fairy with the fairy?
Yes.
So girls use their magic, their charms, their sexuality, whatever it is, to solve problems, while boys use skills and they use talent and they use rationale. So those are all very old-fashioned kind of traditional stereotypes.
Excuse me, if you're just listening to us on the audio side, this is Dr. Dafna Lemish from Rutgers University, did an important study internationally on this. So what message does it send to girls as they watch this? By the way, we have an 8-year-old daughter who watches, and I'm really concerned.
You know, if you're not represented, if you don't see yourself, whether you're a girl, whether you're a person with disabilities, whether you're a minority person, when you don't see yourself, you imagine that all the exciting adventures, all the talented things, all the falling in love, all the good things that are happening to children are happening to white boys. And what about me? If I'm not represented, what does it tell me about my value in society? We keep saying that television is a school. It's an alternative school. It teaches our children about life. It is about what's valued in our society. It teaches about what it means to be a boy, what it means to be a girl, what's good, what's bad.
It socializes them. It's supposed to reflect society. And what about children who are, frankly, not very rich?
Well, they're not
Were they represented?
They're not represented because most of the stories are about middle class or middle and higher class children. And that's really a problem because we're not talking about representing poverty. I mean, we're not talking about campaigns for, with children starving in Africa with mosquitoes all over them. We're talking about children who are from different life circumstances and still can be happy, can be talented, can be resilient, can be capable, can have, good life. So you don't have to be middle class, you don't have to be rich to have a full, meaningful life.
We're taping this program in Newark, New Jersey at NJTV. You don't see a lot of kids from urban communities like Newark? Is that what you're saying?
No, we don't. We don't see minorities.
So what are they looking at? So
they're
kids in Newark, Jersey City, Camden, Philadelphia, New York City, the Bronx, Brooklyn, what do they see?
They look at white middle-class society and they think this is what life is and should be. And
where do they fit in?
They don't fit. And the interesting thing about it is, as I said before, this study has been done internationally. And because most of television that travels around the world is produced in the United States and other Western countries, so children around the world are watching American television. So you could be, for example, you can be in Ghana where 95% of the population is black, is African, and you still see a society that is white.
What about who's behind the scenes making this children's programming? What does that reflect?
That's very relevant because what we found in the study is that the majority of the people creating this content are males. So you have, especially in the directors.
Shocking.
Well,
I'm joking.
I know.
So what do they make stuff about themselves, or the way they see themselves?
They bring their perspective, they bring their life experience, and that's what they know, and that's what they think is normal. We also found.
Talk about the value of diversity in the workplace. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So it's mainly the creators and the directors that are males, but also the writers and producers. You see a little bit more of mixed teams, like you have females and males together, but very few teams that are led by women. So it's still dominated by males. And the other important point is that most of the television for children is fiction television. Out of it, most of the programs is animation. In animation, the profession of animation is highly dominated by males, and they produce whatever they believe, is their life experience.
Listen, I don't want to turn this into a commercial for public broadcasting for PBS, but PBS was examined here. And we've done a lot of collaborating with the Children's Television Network, the folks who make Sesame Street happen. And I know that Julia is a character on Sesame Street who has autism.
Yes, I think Down syndrome or autism?
Well, she has autism.
Autism, okay.
And we've talked about this extensively.
Okay, my mistake.
Was PBS in any way different in children's programming?
Yes, PBS was different. PBS has a higher percentage of women in the workforce and also a better presentation and representation of females. For example, many of the female characters on television in PBS are leaders rather than followers, which is a very different result than from the other stations. And it's not, when we talk about PBS, everybody talks about Sesame Street, which of course, is a flagship of education. But it's a lot more. There's so many other programs that are being produced now that consider girls, that consider diversity. In terms of diversity, of race diversity, you see better representation in PBS than commercial television.
The LGBTQ community?
Oh, they don't exist?
They don't?
They don't exist in children's television. Yes, they don't exist in children's television, just like, poor children don't exist and children with disabilities don't exist. They don't exist.
But they exist.
Well, of course they exist. But
they exist in large numbers.
In children's television, it's taboo. We just had a big scandal we just had a big scandal about this recently. In a program that did present some kind of mixed marriage, same-sex marriage. And
that was controversial?
And that was hugely controversial in children's television.
We watch Modern Family with our children, and I'm thinking to myself, that's a commercial. That's not even public broadcasting.
Children's television is quite conservative in that regard and in other areas as well.
So that's adults programming, and I'm referring to as Modern Family. Children's programming, what is it, draw a line and say we're not talking about this?
That's absolutely true. In one of my studies, I interviewed producers, and that was their argument, that they do not show at all, do not touch this topic because it's taboo, and they're going to get terrible responses to that.
We have just a minute or so left. Dr. Lemish, distinguished professor from Rutgers University, from the program that I was proud to graduate from. I'm going to ask you something before you leave. What are we supposed to do now? Now that you've done this study, what are we supposed to do?
Well, I'll tell you what we do. First thing is, like you said, you graduate from our program, is that we educate and train the next generation of people in the media to be aware of issue of race, of diversity, and all kinds of human demographics and human characteristics. And we hope that they will be leading a different kind of screen in the future. That's one direction. programs like this, raise awareness of the public that this is an issue.
Just talking about it, exposing
Talking
it.
about it and selectively watching programs that do show diversity and not watching programs that don't. I mean, we know this industry is based on ratings, and if you just don't watch programs that you think are not representing your world and not representing the values you believe in, you don't watch them. And if you don't watch them, there is power there.
Final comment on our end. I appreciate what you said about ratings, but in public broadcasting, we are blessed to be able to do programming that makes a difference.
Absolutely.
We would love to have more people watching, but ratings do not drive what we do.
I
But
do know.
we're fortunate enough to
Yeah.
raise the money to make it happen.
I do know
Dr.
that.
Dafna Lemish, distinguished professor at a great program. It is the School of Communication Information at the State University, Rutgers University. I want to thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Well done. I'm Steve Adubato. This is One on One. We'll be right back.
To watch more One-on-One with Steve Adubato, find us online and follow us on social media.
We're pleased to welcome back our good friend Shavar Jeffries, President, Democrats for Education Reform. Good to see you.
Happy to be here.
So many things to talk about. What do we mean education reform? What do we have to reform and why, Shavar?
Well, in too many of our public schools, both in urban communities as well as rural communities, the children just aren't getting what they deserve. We have many individual schools that are working well, but as a system, our schools aren't working well enough to really prepare young people for the global 21st century economy. And so we focus on 5 issues. Standards and accountability, 1. We want our kids taught on the basis of global standards so they're ready to compete with anybody in the world. We believe in reimagining teacher prep. Our teachers are amazing, but 2/3 of our teachers say that the graduate schools of ed are not giving them what they need to drive instruction in the classroom, so we want to reimagine that. We need reform in higher education. Too many working families simply can't afford college, but we also have too many colleges that are dropout factors. The kids are just not making it through. And then we also need more options within the public education space because parents need more choices to line education.
Jump on that last one. More options.
Yeah. Well,
let's disclose. You and I have talked. Born and raised both in Newark.
Yeah.
Different wards. There are 5 wards in the city. We won't get all. There are 5 wards. You grew
only
up,
one ward, the South Ward. That's
Yeah, I know. No, the North Ward in my world. But both of us chose, or both of us had the opportunity, let's say. Yes. You went to Seton Hall Prep.
I did.
You were part of this initiative called the Griffin Bridges Initiative back in 1992.
Yeah.
Let's just disclose I did not graduate in that year.
Uh-huh.
Just leave that alone. So, and I went to SS Catholic, which doesn't even exist anymore.
Yeah.
Public schools are great, but we made that choice. Is that what you mean, or choice within the public schools?
Well, I mean both. The organization I work with, focuses on choice within the public education system. So both making sure our traditional public schools are strong, because we don't believe in one versus the other, right?
You don't?
No, we think.
How about if someone says public schools, that's it, that's the way it should be?
Well, for that person, we say that's a choice you should be able to make for your family.
No, for everybody.
Well, then we don't believe in that. We believe each family should be able to make the choice that's best for their child. So if you want to make a choice for SS Catholic, if someone else wants to send their child to Chancellor Ave, that should be their choice. We want all of the schools.
Chancellor Ave is one of the public schools in the city of Newark.
Absolutely. I mean, my children have attended a private kindergarten school. My son attended a public charter school. He'll be going to Newark Science High School, one of our great traditional public schools in the city of Newark in the fall.
So our daughter is in a public school, a great public school in Montclair, and our boys went through the public schools, but in fact are at the prep, Seton Hall Prep.
That's right.
That was a choice.
Absolutely. And that's what we believe. And we believe that when families are making choices, it holds all these systems more accountable. And frankly, particularly in our public schools, we need our schools to be accountable to parents and families and not to politicians.
What are these families facing, Shavar?
Well, they're facing many challenges, particularly in our urban communities and our rural communities. I mean, frankly, not only our low-income African-American, Hispanic families in the city, but frankly, from our poor rural white families, none of them are really getting what they deserve from our school system. None of them are not really competitive for college and careers, particularly in a 21st century economy where the skill level required to get a decent job is going up. So we need all of our schools we need to raise our standards. We got to pay our teachers better. We got to have more differentials so we can pay teachers better who are in the most needy schools as well.
Shavar, let me follow up on this. By the way, we're talking to Shavar Jeffries, if you listen on the audio side. He knows a lot about education, also a former candidate for mayor in the great city of Newark. Help us on this. Federal policies around education, Trump policies, you said he's disinvesting?
Yes. Every year President Trump has announced his budget. He sought to cut monies for Title I, which is monies that goes to low-income students throughout the country. He's cut money for Pell Grants. That's how working families and poor families can afford college. I received Pell Grants to go to college. Right. Working families and poor families need Pell Grants. He's tried to cut in that. And he's frankly tried to eviscerate the Office of Civil Rights, which protects students with disabilities throughout this country, kids who speak English as a second language, girls to make sure they have equitable access, particularly to sports, and students of color as well. And so he's been very problematic on education policy.
Okay, Governor Murphy and public education, you say?
Well, I've been frankly disappointed in the sense that he sought to cut back on charter schools, which is an option that families, particularly in our cities, really want throughout the state of New Jersey. The state of New Jersey has the second highest performing public charter school sector in the United States. In Newark,
Hold on 1 second. Charter schools are public schools.
They are public charter schools, absolutely.
Okay, but so I don't understand. Are you saying he's cutting back on them, and so therefore there's less choice?
Well, he's issued a moratorium. So if you have providers who want to expand their services and families want them, he's decided artificially across the board he's going to restrict that. We think the family should make those decisions, not politicians.
Why is that a problem?
It's a problem because, again, New Jersey has the second highest public charter performing sector in the country. So we see kids getting a month and a half, 2 months more of learning in math and in English. We see kids graduating from high school at higher levels, going to college at higher levels. We have many good traditional public schools as well, so it's not about one versus the other. But the idea that you want to stop that when it's working for our children doesn't make a lot of sense.
You know, it's interesting. Shavar has a fascinating background. By the way, when you log on to our site, you read about Shavar. Your grandmother had a big influence in your life because?
She was amazing. She was a public school teacher. I lost my mom, unfortunately, to gun violence when I was 10, and my grandmother stepped in and raised me and my 6-month-old sister. She was everything. She worked her butt off to put me in a small Catholic school in Hillside, New Jersey, Christ the King. Then I received the scholarship we talked about from the Boys and Girls Club.
The Griffin Bridges.
The Griffin Bridges program.
What did that do for you?
It changed everything. I mean, no one in my family had gone away to college. I was the first to do that. I was prepared for that because of the education I received, which is why I'm so passionate about educational opportunity. When I got to college, it was downhill for me because I was exceedingly well prepared. Frankly, I thought college was relatively easy because of the education I got through Griffin Bridges. So the prep and my grandmother, I wouldn't be here without
What was the message your grandmother gave you?
Work hard, do the best you can, and also make sure you pay it forward to the next generation.
Define that pay it forward part, because you've been living it every day.
Well, I've been a civil rights lawyer for about 20 years now. So not only have I done a lot of education work, I've done work around violence against women. Again, I lost my mom to domestic violence, so that means a lot to me. I've done work to support immigrants. I've done work around housing policy. I've built institutions. I was the founding board chair of the Team Academy KIPP charter schools in the city of Newark. Been on the board of the Boys and Girls Club of Newark. I believe I've been very blessed. I've been blessed in ways that many other young people have not. And so it's my obligation to pay that forward and to serve other people.
Before I let you out of here, how serious do you think we are, Shavar, about having an honest conversation about what our kids need in urban communities, Newark, Jersey City, Camden, Brooklyn, because we'll nationalize this, the Bedford-Stuyvesant in Brooklyn, the Bronx, et cetera, Philadelphia. How honest are we?
I don't think we're honest. I think there's too many kind of slogans and sloganeering and cheap rhetoric and empty rhetoric, but we're really not serious about dealing with the range of issues that our young people face. Entrenched poverty generates a whole series of issues, from trauma, from housing insecurity, economic insecurity, as families can't get jobs to put food on the table. The levels of violence we see not only in our households but in our communities is very problematic. Macro level racism. I mean, our kids are internalizing that with the police shootings and just day-to-day racial discrimination. Our kids are hit with so many different issues, and we have to have a serious conversation that addresses these issues in a holistic manner. This has been Shavar Jeffries. You may have known him because he ran for mayor in the city of Newark, but the rest of the story we're just trying to touch on here. Shavar, I want to thank you for joining us, and it's an important conversation about education, and I want you to continue by looking at our website, and we'll keep talking about education. This is One-on-One. I'm Steve Adubato. Stay tuned.
To watch more One-on-One with Steve Adubato, find us online and follow us on social media.
Steve Adubato here. We're at the Healthcare Foundation of New Jersey. About to have a forum, a panel discussion called Breaking the Cycle of abuse, of bullying. And one of the members of that panel, we're honored to be joined by Dianne Grossman, co-founder of Mallory's Army. Good to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us about Mallory, your daughter.
Gosh, yeah, so Mallory, she was 12 years old, 6th grader, good student, your all-American little girl. She was a cheerleader, she was a gymnast, good family. So yeah, she was just your all-American little girl.
Somewhere along the way, she got targeted by some other kids?
Yeah, there was a group of girls that just hand-selected. I guess they have a type, and they just decided to pick on her, I think is where it really started. It was just make fun of her and tease her.
When did it start?
It was a slow progression. It started in 5th grade, little bit of relational bullying. I like you on Tuesday, don't like you on Wednesday. Can you come over on Thursday? So very confusing time. And Yeah, they just picked on her.
So you've been very open, and you're doing an incredible public service.
Thanks.
And a lot of parents, well, I don't know what other parents would do.
Yeah,
She was 12 years old when she committed suicide.
yeah.
Were there signs that you saw? I mean, you knew there was something going on, but
Yeah.
what signs could you have possibly seen?
That's the troubling with this. It's not, I think of it as it's an impulsive suicide, meaning that the same signs that every tween goes through, the slamming of the doors, the lack of appetite, the stomach aches, the headaches, the self-isolation, those are the symptoms, yet those are the same symptoms that every parent experiences with young tween girls. So it's hard to look back and say there was one particular thing that I could have picked out. Mallory's first attempt was her last attempt. So it's not as if I had a warning, essentially.
Those young people who were mean, who were bullying and abusive to Mallory, did you sense after this horrific, tragic death of your daughter that they had remorse, that they realized that they had contributed on some level?
No, quite the opposite. It was more
The
of
opposite?
Quite the opposite. As a matter of fact, I have an image of one of the girls who held her hand up like this and showed the Mallory's Army band and said, "If you listen close, you can hear me not caring." Hurt people hurt. And I think that that's really important to, they've not gotten the medical attention that they need or the support that they need from their family to not have this type of behavior. So no, I don't see any ounce of remorse.
So the organization, Mallory's Army, describe it. People, we'll get a shot of the wristband, but tell us about it.
So it's kind of twofold. So when Mallory was about 7 years old, she used to make these little handcrafted bracelets, and she would sell them for an organization called Camp Good Days, and she called it living a bracelet kind of life.
She did this?
Yeah,
Talk about being a leader at 7.
Yeah, it was funny because I've never been that type of philanthropic person. So for me, I just thought she was having fun, and I thought, wow, what a great spirit. And she called it living a bracelet kind of life, wearing a handmade bracelet on your arm to remember to be the good in the world. And she used that money and she would donate it to Camp Good Days. But what we found out after Mallory passed was the silicone bands. Actually, there was a case study done here in New Jersey with 56 middle schools. Yale, Rutgers, and Princeton both participated, and they found that a bright-colored band on the arm of influential children reminds them to be the good in the world. Just like we used to tie a string around our finger to be good and remember to pick up milk and bread, this band operates that same way. So we've used it as a tool within the schools to teach the kids to remember to be the good in the world. So
you said when you first ordered these, you ordered how many?
300.
And you're worried about what?
And we thought we were going to get stuck with like 100 of them. Yeah.
And
we sold 300 in 30 minutes, and then we ordered 1,000, and then we ordered another 1,000. And year to date, we have either sold or given away more than 80,000 of these.
80,000.
80,000.
People can go on the website and get it.
Yeah, they can go on the website. Most of the time we use them in our school system presentations, but yeah, you can go on our website and order all of our gear.
It's powerful on so many levels, and you'll have a chance to talk about that in our forum. I'm curious about that. What message do you have for other parents watching us right now, a lot of different platforms, who say, first of all, they're feeling for you.
Yeah.
They can't imagine not just the pain, but the courage for you to do what you're doing now. But what message do you have for them as it relates to their children, whether they're on one end or the other of bullying or abuse?
Well, I think we have to recognize that bullying is not a rite of passage. It's not something that you just get over. Bullying today, we can't parent like it's 1982. I think we have to take a different approach because bullying has elevated. The bar of hate is much higher than telling someone to go jump in the lake.
And the social media part complicates
and that it does, because what happens, you never get a break from it. You know, it follows you everywhere you go. So I would say to parents who find that their child is involved with an issue like this, it's okay. Just get them the help that they need to understand that this behavior is not acceptable. And for children that are involved in being picked on, I think we have to take it serious. We need to get our children the help that they need, whether it be for mental health services or get them in a school system that supports them. And I think overall as a community, it's time for us to take back our school systems.
My last question to you is this. You chose to do this. It's interesting, you said in our conversation that when your daughter was 7, she was clearly a leader. You did not see yourself in that way, but you are now.
Yeah.
The most significant reason why you choose to be the leader you are in this fight to break the cycle of abuse and bullying?
Those who lose the most do the most. So if you look at any person who's gone through any form of tragedy, they always become the voice to speak up, because who better to share their experience than someone who's had to go through it. So I think learning that has been a great part of my healing. I would never want another parent to feel the way that I do. I never want them to have to go through it. And it's not getting better, it's getting worse. So I think it was just my civic responsibility to share Mallory's story and what she went through to hopefully make a difference.
I'm sorry for interrupting. You're making a powerful difference, not just in this in-depth interview with me, but in the forum we're about to have here at the Healthcare Foundation.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. Okay. Thanks.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 30 years of broadcast excellence. Funding for this edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been provided by the Healthcare Foundation of New Jersey, RWJ Barnabas Health, TD Bank, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, the Turl Fund, supporting Right from the Start NJ, the Russell Berry Foundation, and by Johnson & Johnson. Promotional support provided by NJ Biz and by the New Jersey Business and Industry Association. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area.
In the fabric of America, they are the toughest threads. One of the first things they learned was the code that every service member lives by. Leave no one behind. Now all of us need to live by it too, because some veterans are being left behind. 20 of them take their own lives every day. Learn how to be there for a veteran at BeThereForVeterans.com. Honor the code. Be there. Leave no one behind.